Alright, hi again. So this is my contrasting book to my last video, Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. I ranted on that one for being a good idea, a great concept, a fantastic formula, but a very hard to interpret literary work. And now I will compare it to something that is the complete in the mode of understanding is the complete opposite, and it's done as a genius work. And that is Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. This book changed my perspective of comics in college. You know, before reading just this book alone, Understanding Comics, the hardcover version, as I remember back in my library, I sat there for hours in the library aisle just reading this, mesmerized by this book. And before then, I was a regular, an anime and manga junkie. I was president of my anime club in high school. I sort of went with the fun of it all. We watched the anime sometimes, we goofed around and played improv games for some reason because it was fun. And by reading this book, though, and also another book too, the World of Manga, which is also referenced in in other Scott McCloud works, these helped me realize how much I was missing in comics. Like, literally, what did the gutter between panels mean? And I know that sounds really artsy and it sounds really corny, but I finally learned. This was literally me understanding the visual picture and story interpretation of comics. And it's great. It's fantastic. You know why? Because the guy did it in comic form. I can't say how amazing a format this is for Scott McCloud. I don't know if there has been any other earlier work than this, but when it came to, like, me and this book, it was like magic. It was like, what appeared to be a comic was actually a thorough college analysis book. And it's me in my hand again. It's just, there's so many things that just boggle my mind right now to say about this book, so I'm sorry, let me make this a little bit more clear. But Scott McCloud, a comic artist, ended up had this great idea to basically show what comics are through comic form. Literally using the media to explain the media. And it's been a cornerstone for, modern comic artists and story and people of the media branch, people who are into comics, and people who aren't even into comics, because it envelops what art is, in pieces and all together. Let me get back to the compare and contrast. What Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces doesn't end up doing right does not come out clear when it comes to describing what he really means, like what he's trying to say. It is very clouded and very lost within very intelligent words. But as far as Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, it is it's amazing because you are literally watching and reading at the same time. The way that a speech bubble is made so small enough that you have to say what you mean in that point. What I'm trying to say is that Scott McCloud's work isn't just blunt. No, it's to the point. And it plays with you, though. I mean, the way that you read, you don't even know that the way that you read comics helps you understand the point. I'm not going to spoil a lot of this, though, but it sounds like I'm really excited. Sorry, but I am. This is a fantastic read. You're reading a comic and literally learning at the same time. And it's not a cheap ploy, it's not a gimmick. helps. It literally, that is his example, that is his model, his formula on the page. Literally there for you to read. And, you know, the more that you follow along, the more points that he makes while you're reading that work. They're proven right there in front of you. It's literally genius. And I loved this book. I had to get myself a copy, and I had to read it over again. And even better, I got his later work, making comics. And, I mean, I know I've skipped out on the innovation of comics. I'm sorry, his middle book. I know that it's definitely on my list, but when it comes to this form of using comics to interpret what the media or what comics itself means, and what we can do with it, and how we can go beyond the lines, how we can, you know, find our place with it, that is his point. You know, maybe there's more, maybe there's less, I'm just one guy, but it does so much of a better job than Hero with a Thousand Faces. Because, and don't get me because it's a comic, comics can be very hard to read. And, okay, I don't mean to get too defensive about this, but no, comics, like other books, can be hard to read. There have been comics out there who are designed or who are interpreted like in the same fashion that is Joseph Campbell's. They use a lot of words, they use a lot of imagery, and sometimes it just doesn't come across. You know, that's the line, you know, between the comics you know and the comics you don't. If you need something to really help you connect, to really help you actually care about, you know, about comic books, about manga even, especially manga, because I know that there are so many young kids out there that I wish that I could give this knowledge back to, you know, because I wish I had taken what I know about comics now and given that to my anime club back in the day. There's, you know, this whole world, this whole underlying, you know, structure and art to play around with when it comes to comics, and what manga does so well to make it so strong. There's so many theories and there's so many examples to go by that it's almost like I almost regret not having this book in high school to keep this knowledge going to the younger crowd. So what I'm saying is that if you are an avid manga fan, manga, anime, and all around Japan a fan, you know, if you really want to understand where comics come from, if you really want to understand where anime comes from, you have to go step back a bit. You have to take a look at the past, and you have to understand why everything is built the way it is, or else you're just going to come off like, you know, like you're just a fan, rather than someone who really cares. You know, you can show your care by having all the memorabilia that you want, but if you don't understand why it is, then why is it? Like, why do you really care? So that's where understanding comics comes into play for me, because it helped me realize why mangas, that's where making comics comes in for me. It helped me understand why manga is so good and why comics are so good, you know? Because you may be just reading along and you may be just looking at pictures, but the magic that comes from your own subconscious really makes comics for you. And I may be just rambling right now, but, you know, at least with this comic, at least with this mode, I get it. I so get it. I love how I understand it. And that is something that I don't think Joseph Campbell's work is doing very well for me.